On today's Charleston Women podcast, we are going to speak with someone who many of you already know and you will recognize. She is a local TV news anchor, but also we're going to find out more about her cheerleading career, her time in the Army, and her future as a podcaster. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce Tessa Spencer.
This is Charleston Women Podcast, where you can meet like-minded, strong, independent, professional, and inspiring local women. This is Charleston Women Podcast.
And now it is my honor to welcome to the Charleston Women Podcast, the one and only Tessa Spencer. You know her, you love her. Tessa,
I hope. How you doing, Erin?
I am thrilled. This is cool because we both work at ABC News 4, but we never see each other because we're on opposite schedules. So what a treat to see.
It is to see you.
To see you virtually.
Yes. Yeah,
so I thought today you were just featured in Charleston Women Magazine, which is very exciting. And just reading this little form, we have you fill out a form before the podcast. There's a lot about you that I didn't know. So I'm really excited to dive deep and get to know Tessa. Let's start with TV because I think that's currently how most people know you as news anchor Tessa. When did you get into TV? Was this like a lifelong goal or do you feel like you stumbled into it?
It was a little bit of both. I would have to say about the age of 5, I always wanted to be a news anchor. My Aunt Joan Mack was one of the first Black female news anchors in the city of Charleston to anchor a primetime television show. So growing up, in the 70s and the early 80s, and actually all through the 80s, and then, seeing her do that, it's like, oh, wow, I want to be a news anchor. But that kind of got pushed to the back burner, and I got into radio right out of college. And I've been doing that now for almost 30 some odd years. But the way I got into TV, I kind of just happened to be at the right place at the right time. Approached by the general manager back, I think in 2009, about 2009 to do some freelance work because my radio manager at the time wouldn't let me out of my contract because I just signed a new contract, wouldn't let me get out of that to get into television. So that's how I started doing a little freelance thing. And when we were bought out by a larger company, because we were owned back then, the radio station, radio cluster, owned by a mom and pop group, so to speak. They did a lot of downsizing. I was a victim of that. And it just so happened that day that we were let go, that morning, by that afternoon, the news director at Channel 4, whom we both know, was giving me a call saying, I don't know if this is fate or what, but a reporter position just came open today. Would you be interested? Yeah. So I was like, okay, yeah, sure. Let's try it. And tried it, for 2 months. And by January 2012, it was like, well, if you like me and I'm cool with it, let's just go ahead and move forward. And so that's what we did.
Yeah. And you started out on the morning show, right? For years before you switched to primetime.
That's right. Morning reporter to morning anchor, and now primetime since right before COVID. So the end of 2019 or so. Yeah.
Which shift do you like better? Because for those listening, the morning shift is like a 2 a.m., 3 a.m.-ish wake-up call.
I would say I like evenings better because I did morning radio from 1999 to 2011. And so I would have to be into work about 5 a.m., 5:15. And once I started doing morning television, that meant more of a 1:30 a.m. wake-up call in order to get to work by 3 a.m. So really by the time 2019 rolled around at the end of that, I was really burnt out with my clock and just getting up so early. So it was a welcome break from that. Right.
Finally well rested. We can still hear you though on the radio, correct? You're still working in the radio. Where can we find you?
Magic 107.3. That's Cumulus radio cluster. Of course, that includes 95SX, WTMA, 96.9 The Wolf, and the station that I did the morning show on, Z93, for many, many years. But I do middays on Magic 107.3.
So how do you balance it all? Because as we know, your job as primary news anchor for the station can be very demanding. You're doing radio in the afternoon, yet you have 2 sons.
Yeah.
Any woman listening to this podcast is like, OMG, how does she do it all? What does your typical day look like?
And, Erin, the good thing about it, and I'll kind of work backwards with that, the boys now are young men. My oldest will be 24 here in just a few days. And the youngest will be 22 at the end of August. So thank God for that. But I remember when they were much smaller and still in school, I would have to take them to work with me and just kind of really come up with that sweet spot. Okay, I've got to leave, get you to school, and then come back to work. So I really was all over the place. But now it's a little bit more structure. And especially with having an understanding radio manager and also having the manager at the TV station kind of understand that, hey, I was doing radio for a very long time prior to taking this job. And that's a part and piece of who I am. So to have them both understand, like radio, with the pandemic now, I do most of it from home and I go in live Thursday and Fridays, like twice a week. But if I have to say, do a TV shoot for an interview or something like that, I'll let radio know, hey, I've got to go do this. And, we make arrangements that way. So right now they're both pretty flexible, but news is my primary. Always takes precedence first because that's the main job.
Right.
Be part of the conversation surrounding Mount Pleasant. Sponsor the Mount Pleasant Podcast. Podcast marketing is the new, powerful way to brand your business and reach your customers. For more information, visit carolinapodcasts.com or call 843-345-7012.
You're listening to the Charleston Women Podcast.
Do you have, radio was your starting point. Do you still, if you had to choose which one you love the most, could you say, or they're so different?
They're both very different in their way. And I think because with radio, of course, it's more personality driven. So I'm able to kind of say what I think. But now I have to kind of find that balance because I'm a news anchor. I've got to find that sweet spot of I don't want to say anything that's going to be offensive. Not that I would anyway, but the free thought isn't so much they're expressing it so much. But I think radio, because it allows you to kind of just be yourself. Not that you're not yourself when you do TV, but it's a little bit more structure to it. And you only get glimpses of an anchor's personality, depending on, what's surrounding it, that.
Right. I always say there's like the polished TV Tessa, and then there's, radio or at home Tessa. It's a little, a little looser, which we're all like that. What would you say for those of us that know the polished television Tessa that we've been watching for years? What is one thing about you that might surprise people? Like something that people don't know about you?
I wear sneakers all the time.
That I did know.
Yeah. You knew that. Let's see. What do I do? I like to crack jokes in between, stories when appropriate. Let's see. I'm the mom of the newsroom. We kind of had a discussion about that a few weeks ago, but, and I provide candy for everybody. So they come over to my desk and Tessa, can I get a Jolly Rancher? Can I get a this? So that kind of, makes their day that they're able, I have like treats. They're like, you've got all the treats. So, but I kind of cater to the younger folks kind of, getting into the business. So it's neat to see some talented people come through and they're working hard and, you just kind of look out for them a little bit.
Right.
That's about it. Yeah.
The newbies and how the
newbies
of TV and media has changed from when we first started, for sure.
Absolutely.
Let's go back to your beginnings, because here's where a lot of this people probably don't know about you. I want to start in college. You were a college cheerleader. I didn't know that. And then you went on to become a pro football cheerleader. That I did not know either. So
really? Okay.
I've never seen you like tumble or stunt in the
that's right. Hey, listen. First of all, I stayed on the ground too much because I stayed on the ground literally and also by choice. I started out in college my freshman year. My first roommate, she was a career cheerleader, little league, middle school, high school. And now it's just like, okay, I'm going to try out. She's like, you should try out too. Try out. So I made it. I made the varsity. She made the JV. That didn't go very well. She wasn't my roommate for very much longer. I was like, it's not my fault. I'm sorry. So, I did some of the stunting. Wasn't my thing because I always ended up across the street at Trident Medical Center for sprained ankle or, my partner dropped me or, whatever the case may be. And so I did that. But then we started the dance team at what is now Charleston Southern, because at the time it was Baptist College at Charleston.
Oh, that's cool.
And I graduated the year before it changed to a CSU. But we did start the dance team there. That's still going on now. And they have the less modest uniforms. It's like, wow, our skirts had to be like almost to the knees. You know what I'm saying? But that shows you how much has changed over the years.
Yeah.
And the pro NFL part, that came in just on a whim to see if I could do it. I was almost 30 years old at the time. And I had just had my oldest son. And the Tennessee Titans had moved to Nashville from Houston. And so there's like, hey, we need cheerleaders and we have tryouts. And so I got prepared for that. The newspaper there, the Tennessean, did a big spread, local radio personality, tries to make the team, whatever the case may be. And I did that. I made it. To my surprise, myself and another lady, we were like the oldest. People were like 29 and a half. Everyone else was like 18, 19 years old.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And talking about getting cosmetic surgery. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not my thing, And so, and the thing about it, Erin, I don't like to be, well, that's another thing. I don't like to be looked at, which is weird because
you're in the wrong business then.
The wrong business.
I get it. I get it. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so at that time too was a perfect storm in a way, in that my old radio manager who gave me my first job out of college here in Charleston called and said, "Are you ready to come back home?" I was like, you know what? Yeah, I am. And that's how, did the successful morning radio show. So I kind of did that in order just to see if I could do it.
Right. I mean, I'm super impressed. I have a little daughter that's a cheerleader, and like, I'm blown away that you were doing that at 30. So kudos to you. The next time I see you in person, I want to see like a back tuck or handspring.
Oh no. Yeah. Okay.
Don't break anything.
I bent over in the shower the other morning and threw my back out. So there's not going to be any of.
I have done that blow drying my hair. You know how like if you flip your head, through my back out.
Yeah. You come back up.
You're both the moms of the TV station. Let's put it that way.
Yes. You
were also, and this is very important, an Army veteran. Tell me your story of when you joined the Army, how long you were in, and we thank you for your service.
Oh, my pleasure. I actually did it while I was in college, and I went in on the buddy system with my suite mate, who was also one of my good friends, and we're like, let's do something. We, I guess, just weren't content with going to school and sitting in the dorm room and whatnot. And so I was like, oh, and I kid you not, it's like a commercial, be all that you can be, came on television. You're like, looked at each other, it's like, let's join the Army, which is what we did. And did my basic training. We did basic training at Fort Jackson. And I was sort of like the private Benjamin of the battalion at the time, because my mom would send me Kool-Aid because I wouldn't drink water. I hated drinking water back then. So in my canteen, instead of the drill sergeant, if we went on a road march, all right, stop, drink water. I'm drinking grape Kool-Aid. So it's just, I would have to sneak and make that in the mess hall, before we would leave. Yeah. So I did that, but no, I really, really enjoyed it. I found out that I could be a leader, while I was in there. And it really kind of toughened, my skin. And the reserve unit that's now shuttered, that was here down on near Colonial Lake on the corner of Broad. And I can't remember the other street, but it was the 3271st U.S. Army Hospital. So I was a field medic. So it was like I could work like a MASH unit, a hospital in the field. Yeah. Or work in a hospital clinic, which is what I did during a first Desert Storm. And we had to go out to Fort Leavenworth. Some of me and my buddies had to go fill in for the staff that went over to the desert. So it was a unique experience to be doing it full time for that year's time. And at that point, I seriously considered a full time military career, but they weren't taking what was called prior service at that time. So
you have done so much between everything that we've talked about, radio, TV, the Army, the cheering. On top of that, but I've got two more things that I want to touch on because I know you have to go. So really quickly, you've had some amazing interviews and experiences. So if you could just touch on maybe some of the highlights of your career. And then I want to finish with a very special project that you're working on. If you can share something that's upcoming. So let's start with the highlights of your career. What are some of your favorite things?
Of course, being in radio and, you get a chance to meet so many people and interview so many people. I think one of the interviews that stands out the most with me is when we interviewed Will Smith. And at the time, because it was a phone interview, and he was laying in his daughter Willow's bed. And I think Willow now is like 20 years old, but she was a little girl at the time. And he was doing the interview from her bed because he's like, hey, where are you? Right now I'm laying in Willow's bed and doing the interview. And he, at one point in time, and don't ask me how we got on that conversation, but it was bizarre because he's like, he thought I was white. And I said, I'm not white. And he's like, oh yeah, prove it. Fax me a picture. So
First of all, facts.
Facts. So I faxed him a picture and he's like, oh yeah. Okay. So that, that was really funny.
Wow.
And one of the others, I've met 2 out of the 3 members of Destiny's Child. The last person was Michelle Williams. I made a bracelet for her, and she wore it. And Lionel Richie, the biggest, because I'm a really big Lionel Richie fan, and we had him live in studio. And I got to tell him how much of a big deal he was in my life back in the 80s growing up. And we sang my favorite song, which is You. You are the sun, you are the rain. And we sang that live on the radio. And that was just like the biggest highlight ever. And I got a hug from Shamar Moore. I've got that picture. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you showered since? We just let marinate.
Yes, I have. And he was very nice, very kind. And then I see that he hugs everybody that he meets just like that, because there are a lot of people with the same pose.
That's so funny. You are still special. Don't take it away. Okay. You have had some incredible experiences, and I love that you are moving forward with a new project. I don't know how much you're willing to tell before the official launch, but you were telling me a little bit about a podcast that you're working on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And, and with being in television and radio, you kind of have, the clock ticking. For radio. It's more or less like, okay, how much longer can I be relevant to what's going on in the music industry? Because it is changing, but it's still very much the same, but still changing nonetheless. And in television, sometimes we have a shelf life as far as what we can do when it comes to that. So I wanted something. I was talking with my fiance, and we were like, and he's like, well, babe, find something that you want to do. What is it that you're talking about retiring here in a few years, but what is a passion project that you want to do? And I found that whenever I talk to people about their testimonies and their spiritual life, that really gets me going. Mm-hmm. So I decided to come up with a podcast, and it took me months, I think since almost a year ago, to actually put the plan into action. Mm-hmm. And I talked to people about their testimonies in life and how their spirituality and their connection with whoever they believe in. Most everyone's Christian that I've spoken with so far, and just some phenomenal stories of how God has worked in their life. So in their own words, to get to hear that and share that, with other people. So it's been so good. I mean, there've been times when I've cried and I've gotten goosebumps through the whole thing. So it really feeds my spirit in that way. So, but it will be launching July 26th, and it's going to be available on wherever you can get your podcast. My producer has the hookup with that, and and so he's going to make sure that it gets out there. So I'm looking forward
to
wonderful. People
so
being able to hear that.
Testimonies with Tessa Spencer, and we can just find it wherever you get your podcast.
Yes,
that's so exciting.
That's right.
How do you have time for this within your day?
I do it during my dinner break.
Multitasking.
Because I have a travel podcast thing where I have my book bag, cool. And I have my microphones in it, mm-hmm. and I can connect my phone to it, and it's studio quality. And I could do it if I meet somebody at a restaurant. Hey, that's time to do. You want to sit down? We could hook everything up right there and do it that way. So.
Last question. I have loved talking to you. This has been so much fun. I love finding out people's morning routines, right? Because they say that the way you start the day says a lot about who you are, what you do in life. So what is your morning routine? Anything that would surprise us, or something that works for you that maybe we should try?
I've now learned how to, because I find that my body, I have so many ailments. I'm
only laughing because I can relate.
Hey, if you get out of bed wrong one good time, you're messed up for the rest of the day. So I've found these stretches that I can do while I'm still in bed.
Oh, yeah.
Because I get up about 9 a.m. and I start doing radio. Mm-hmm. And my fiance will have my coffee waiting and a piece of fruit and bottled water. So when I walk in, I, get to do that. And so, and so that's really how it starts every day, with stretching, radio. I might eat breakfast, I might not. And then it just really kind of goes straight into getting ready for my day. But I'm learning now to carve out some time where I can have a little bit of serenity, peace and quiet, and get focused for the rest of the day. And I find that when you do that, that really sets the tone.
All right, Tessa, thank you. I know you're a busy lady. I know
Thanks,
you have
Erin.
to do a pickup. Thank you for your time so much. You have been listening to the Charleston Women Podcast. I'm your host, Erin Kienzle, and we have been talking to the one and only Tessa Spencer.
Thanks for spending time with Charleston Women Podcast. Please like us and follow us on whatever platform you're using to access Charleston Women Podcast.